setting, plot, characters, climax, resolution, all elements to any story, good or bad. It's only when the creators of these stories do it well that the stories get recognition. And I feel this should be the case with Cyberpunk 2077. While it had a rough start back in 2020, it's safe to say that the game is more than flesh out its issues and bugs of the past. While I did still encounter some glitches throughout my playthrough, Are you serious? None were absolutely game-altering or breaking, and most of the time they're actually quite funny, so without further ado, let's get into the nitty and gritty of Cyberpunk 2077. I like to start by talking about the world of Cyberpunk, being the best iteration of the Cyberpunk setting I've ever seen in media. The story does a great job of taking the player to many different aspects of the world, whether it's in the criminal hideouts or fancy corporations' facilities. We see it all. Each district you can explore also boasts their own set of characteristics, with areas like Watson acting as a form of slums, and Pacifica being all run down and abandoned. We even get a glance of life just outside of Night City, with Panam and the Aldecaldos. There are just so many more examples and small things strewn about to truly make this a world, but if I were to sit here and pick out each of these things, we'd be here for a while. Next, I'd like to talk about the gameplay and combat of Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk plays like most first-person shooters these days, and adds one major mechanic that adds a bit of fun to combat and stealth. This is the hacking ability, hard to master but fun to use. You can equip a wide variety of hacks to use against your opponents. One I use frequently is possibly one of the best in the game. It's called Reboot Optics, and it allows you to literally turn off an enemy's eyes for a short period of time. This allows players to easily traverse stealth sections and make stealth genuinely fun, this coming from a guy who does not enjoy stealth in video games. The skill tree is also very diverse and boasts many useful perks that allow the player to work towards a specific playstyle. Will you choose to rain bullets upon your foes with guns galore? Will you spec into the aforementioned quick hacking tree and become a hefty hacker? Or will you study the blade and become a master at melee? Whatever you choose will host a load of benefits and will allow you to reign supreme on the battlefield nonetheless. Now I'd like to touch on the story of Cyberpunk 2077 without getting too in-depth. I don't want to spoil too much of it, as I believe now is as good a time as any to get into Cyberpunk and try it out for yourself. So, since I can't really say or show too much, the gameplay I provided in this video is only of the first act in this game, which took me about 5 hours to replay. I'll also only make slight points at things I like and don't like about the story. One point I already addressed is that the story does a great job of taking the player to all the different facets of Night City. This way, even if players don't go out of their way to explore, they'll still see most of what Night City has to offer. I also like how the game goes about introducing characters in this way. Each character is unique and has their own affiliations and characteristics that make them integral, not only to the story, but to Night City as well. Characters like Ripper Docs, who specialize in modifying customer cyberware, crime bosses that give out jobs and info on gigs, and expert hackers and informants can all be found within Night City. Even just random NPCs have a level of story and love in them. Also, Hideo Kojima. Need I say more? I also love how intuitive the dialogue options are and how much the story changes depending on what you choose. Sometimes saying something gets you into a bad situation, or saying nothing at all gets you killed. Choices are also tied to gameplay. This one time, for example, I killed this one chick, and my friend got pretty upset, but after replaying the mission, the same person kissed me. The slightest alterations can truly change the outcome of your experience, and can affect whether you'll do certain missions or not. One thing I don't like about the story is the fact you can't replay missions. The only way you could is if you were to reload a save just before the mission. The more I thought about it though, you shouldn't be able to reload missions anyways. Cyberpunk isn't just some RPG where you grind up levels and gear just to fight the final boss and do a little dance. No, Cyberpunk is a story about a nomad, street kid, or corpo named V, which are 3 separate life paths that you can choose at the beginning of the game while making your character. They change the first hour or so of gameplay and allow you to make separate dialogue options later in the story. Truth is, it really doesn't matter what you choose here, which I think totally blows. I think it would have been super dope to see how different the story could have changed had the story been centered around the life you led. But it could also boil down to how sooner or later the city will always win. Sure, you may be outliving your nomadic life, but you'll end up behind city walls eventually. And you may be in your ivory tower with glass walls, but sooner or later, you'll be thrown back onto the street and back into the main story of V. The beginning of the story doesn't matter too much when it all rides on what happens in the end, which is my biggest nitpick of Night City. This game, and sorry to slightly spoil, has no good endings. There's one pretty good ending that I ended up getting in my playthrough, but I believe it may be the saddest of the endings. It is full of false positives, and realizing just that made me bawl like a baby, going wah wah and shit. They really they really had to do us like that, building this masterpiece of a game and just kicking us in the sack because we expected something amazing waiting for us at the finish line. It sucks, but I digress. Finally, I'd like to talk about the characters in this game. There are many characters in the world of Cyberpunk 2077 that play very well into the story and city. They each have their own ideals and beliefs that make them unique when you first encounter them. I'll only touch on a few characters, so I don't spoil too much for you guys that still want to play it. One of the first characters you meet is Victor, the Ripper Doc. I see him as an important character as he introduces V to cybernetic enhancements and shows off a lot of the tech that is present in 2077. Another character that does this pretty well is Judy. She specializes in brain dances, which are used for like VR porn, but she can also use them to record useful data that can assist V. She's also so hot.
Should feel a slight tingle.
In my balls. Sorry. And last but not least, Keanu Reeves himself, Johnny Silverhand. Hands down the most important character in the game, besides V, of course. His role in the late game is very important and could very much sway the player into a different ending option. His chemistry with V is also quite charming later on, starting as some terroristic virus and becoming a sort of imaginary friend. There are at least a dozen other characters I found pretty cool, but you'll have to play the game to experience them yourselves. And I feel this is an okay stopping point. I'd love to just gush more about this game, because I know I've missed something, but I really can't without spoiling too much either. Chances are some of you have already played this game or seen someone else play through it, but I don't want to have someone miss the opportunity of playing through such an amazing game raw, because I told them that this person dies and this happens and so on, so on. What my aim was with this video was to try to get some more recognition out of Cyberpunk 2077. It was one of my most anticipated games, but I was quickly turned off by all the bugs and bad reviews. After just listening to the voice in my head and finally just getting it, I didn't regret it. I'm hoping someone who was in my position of uncertainty sees this video and gets the game, as you'll feel so much better when you do. If anything, this video should encourage all of you to listen to that voice in your head sometimes, even if the voice in your head is Keanu Reeves with a metal arm, as this whole video wouldn't be here if I didn't. Of course, don't do anything stupid or illegal, just listen to your inside voice when you're on the fence about something. And going off script here, I really appreciate all the views the first video got and the amount of subs I have. Thank you guys for that. Super dope. I'd super appreciate it if you guys like this video, turn on notifications, because then you'd know when I make another dope video, which will be happening. I have a couple of smaller video ideas in my head that could fill in some weak slots, so that'll be super cool. And if you like it, it'll get more people to see the video, and so on and so forth. I'm sorry if you guys were expecting another like Monster Hunter upload. I'm not going to be doing solely Monster Hunter on this channel. I'm going to be doing other things I like, and hoping there are people that like all of my likes. All my likes? Whatever. I'm going to make videos that I want to make. If that's not entirely what you want, I'm sorry. Whatever you do want, please put in the comments. I mean, I said I had a couple of short video ideas, but those are but a couple ideas. So please, please. And I love reading your comments. I don't respond to all of them. I'll respond to the first few because those are the first ones I see. If you guys have any questions, I'll answer them too, probably, most of the time. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye-bye.